The following program is a podcast1.com production.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Christmas is the time to say I love you. Stay at the doors with laughter and good cheer. Christmas is the time to say I love you. And I feel that the last of the year.
I think we do end up having a lot of collateral matters to talk about as a result of the president's desire to tweet.
I disavow these requirements. I regret those comments that he made. I don't think claiming a person can't do the job because of their race is sort of like the textbook definition of a racist comment.
You've ended the overregulation of the American economy. And that, coupled with what we did last night and what the House finished this morning, means America is going to start growing again. Thank you, Mr. President, for all you're doing.
Something this big, something this generational, something this profound could not have been done without exquisite presidential leadership. Mr. President, thank you for getting us over the finish line. Thank you for getting us where we are.
You'll like me very much, believe me. All right? You're going to like me very much. It's going to be fun.
Well, he did say that they were going to love him. He did say that just watch what I'm going to do, and you will come to like me. You might not love my tone at times. You might not love my tweeting, as we heard from Mitch McConnell. You might not love the fact that I took on a Hispanic judge, Paul Ryan. You might not like the fact that I responded to that Khazir Khan at the Democrat National Convention, or said he liked POWs who didn't get caught. But he did say to them, just watch what I can do. And at the end of his first year in office, I don't see how you conclude anything except that this has been a wildly successful first year in office for this president. 855-40-LAURA. We were at the White House yesterday for the big celebration. It was quite a thing to behold. It was after we did the Pence interview, getting ready for the Pence interview, and we walked over to the South Lawn, and boy, they needed something big to celebrate over there. And it's Christmas time. Christmas is in the air, and most Americans are going to get a tax cut. Look, if we had our druthers, it would be a lot different, but it's a massive change to the U.S. tax code. We still have 7 brackets. All but 2 of them have tax cuts, including the upper, including the middle. You get double the standard deduction for couples. Now companies are starting to deliver bonuses to employees, like Comcast, NBC Comcast. Is Mika and Joe and the whole panel on MSNBC, I look forward to that check being delivered to the poor. Maybe Food for the Poor. By the way, Food for the Poor, I want 3 $10,000 contributions today. Food for the Poor, I want 3 of you to step up $10,000 each for a phenomenal organization that will help save 200 children. Just this week alone, if we get that money to Food for the Poor, 200 children will be saved for this year, food and water for them and their families. So Food for the Poor, just go to lauraingraham.com. But I urge the entire panel this morning on MSNBC, who could find nothing positive to say. They were still talking about the 2016 election. They think that Trump is obsessed with the 2016 election cycle. I think they should look in the mirror, because they're the ones obsessed with the fact that they were humiliated and embarrassed that he actually won.
But can't they for one day just cover the thing and say,
you know what?
There are problems with the tax bill. It may hurt the deficit, whatever. They can be critical, but let the Republicans have their moment of celebration. You remember when the Democrats, when they passed Obamacare, it was like the Messiah had arrived on the South Lawn.
Oh yeah, and they were. We're going to talk about one of the more vile things that was written yesterday on Twitter about the event. We'll talk about that in a few moments. It really was a new low for the left, a new low. But let's going back to the mood at the White House yesterday. I mean, again, these staffers have been walking through the fire of incoming from the media and questions from Mueller and all for basically a year. There's a lot of tumult. So I went up to General Kelly and I said to him, first of all, Merry Christmas. And he's so humble. I mean, he's just, the guy is the portrait of humility. And I said, great to see you. I gave him a Christmas hug. And I said, by the way, I don't think today would have been possible had you not stepped in as chief of staff. Because, it's the president's drive that gets this done with willing partners on the Hill. No doubt about it. However, Kelly is a calming influence on the White House, I think, in a good way. He put some order in the process of people going into the Oval Office. So it's not like a pinball machine of activity. So even when you go over to the West Wing now, in those first couple of months, it was just, it was pretty frenetic over there. It was like a Grand Central Station at Christmas time, every day, all the time. And now it's just now the regular course of doing business, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for it, General Kelly. I adore him. I think he's such a great man. And Vice President Pence, the same thing. He is a man of such humility and such inner confidence and grace, which means the left hates him too now. They spent most of the morning trashing him for thanking the president for, carrying on this year and remaining undeterred in this ultimate goal of tax relief. Oh, they were raking Vice President Pence over the coals. These people have no lives. They have zero substance. It's all personal attacks. That's all they have. But I'm not going to let that rain on my parade. I'm really not. I'm not going to let it rain on my parade. Now, was it funny to see Paul Ryan up there, who we all know didn't want Trump to be the nominee? And we all know that he basically made those comments about race after the Judge Curiel thing. And, after the Billy Bush thing, he canceled the Fall Fest. I never get over that. Canceled the Fall Fest event in Wisconsin that Saturday.
That's right.
Where the president was supposed to show up. So, I mean, as in a matter of just people change, and it shows you that results matter. You start winning, and people want to be with a winner.
Well, the big story, he's converted the Republican Party.
Are becoming more Trumpian.
This is a Trumpian party now. That was not the case when he won.
No. And it's much more Trump. Now, there's establishment paw prints all over this. I mean,
didn't see little Bob Corker there yesterday. Was he there?
I did not see little Bob Corker. But the pillars, he could have gotten lost behind the
That's
pillars
right.
on the South
Lawn.
Lawn.
Big Luther was there. Maybe he was in the shadow of Big Luther.
Can you imagine
and
Big Luther standing there going, I can't believe we lost that Senate seat. He's sitting there going, oh my God. Why
we get a recount.
Why am I here? But it was funny to see, McConnell. Well, the president's not familiar with the Senate policy, and leave it to the experts. Remember that leave it to the experts on Obamacare? Oh, okay. That worked out well.
My favorite line is when Orrin Hatch finally came up.
Oh, no. Do we have the Orrin Hatch, James? The Orrin Hatch is... I practically thought he was working for the Nobel Committee. Is Trump going to get the Nobel Prize
They may want
to
use Orrin Hatch to intro the figure at the Hall of the Presidents in Disney because it's such a big wind-up.
I have
Orrin
to
Hatch.
say
Okay,
that this is one of the great privileges of my life to stand here on the White House lawn with the President of the United States, who I love and appreciate so much. All I can say is that God loves this country. We all know it. We wouldn't be where we are without him, and we love all of you. And we're going to keep fighting, and we're going to make this the greatest presidency that we've seen, not only in generations, but maybe ever. God bless all of you.
Thank you. I'll always like Orrin Hatch for standing up for Justice Thomas during the confirmation hearing, and he was so great in that process. He sounds his age there.
Yeah,
wow.
He's enfeebled.
Yeah. But man, I mean
that was quite an endorsement. The greatest presidency ever. Wow.
I mean, I'm not sure we're there yet, but I mean that was. But it was something
from the heart. Yeah.
It was from the heart, and it was something to sit there and just watch that. And the Democrats were I can't believe they're celebrating in that manner. I'm saying to myself, you all had a pep rally for Clinton after he was impeached.
Right.
You rushed to the microphone like it was Christmas Eve.
Don't we have audio of of Obama after the Obamacare victory, of the big rally?
Oh, yeah. So when Obama had the big Obamacare victory, they brought out, the entire deal. We'll get to that later on. But, I mean, you want to talk about how when Obama celebrated, he brought in Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney. The surviving Beatles showed up, for God's sake. Joe Scarborough grousing. Let's listen.
Autocrats across the world would be embarrassed to have so many people fawning over them in public like that. And they knew that just like the Saudis and just like foreign leaders know, the price of admission is sucking up and treating him like he's the most insecure autocrat on the globe. But I wonder what man of any character would sit and listen to that without stopping and with stop. And then, of course, the question, especially for Mike Pence, is what man with any dignity would do the sort of thing that these people did yesterday?
If I were Joe Scarborough, I'd be careful about talking about character and dignity. I'd be careful about throwing rocks on the character front. I think we all can do better in that regard. Right, Joe? It's a little, it's disconcerting isn't the word. It's predictable. And it's petty. And most of all, it's revealing of who they are. The Republicans had a great day. Examine what's in the tax bill, do it fairly, ask some tough questions, what lies ahead. That's fine. But I mean, but this is why nobody's watching MSNBC. This is why they're they do well, okay, and Rachel Maddow can win occasionally when they have a big news night. But in general, they're speaking to a smaller and smaller audience. I think most people are going to get more money in their paychecks as I can't remember who said this yesterday. Maybe it was Kevin Brady who got up and made that point that we'll just wait until February 1st comes along, and you're going to see it all kick into your paycheck, and then people will start feeling better about their prospects for the future. Just wait. Ivanka Trump noted today that she's going to look forward to traveling in April when this really has started to kick in, and then she'll start hearing from Americans about how well we're doing or how well they're doing. 855-40-LAURA. We'll get into all of this. Do you, at this point, feel more hopeful than you did even a year ago about where we're going as a country? A year ago, President Trump, President-elect Trump, was in his transition office in New York, preparing for the inauguration. Vice President Pence was the head of the transition. They were just getting their feet wet. And remember, Donald Trump came from the world of real estate, stepping into the White House to be the commander-in-chief and our chief executive. And a year later, after the dire predictions about global economic collapse and U.S. protectionism and isolationism and nativism, what do we have? We have America back on the right track. We have an economy that is booming. We have confidence up. Housing was soaring this year. If you sold a house this year, except me, if you sold a house this year, you probably made some money on it. And black unemployment, all of it. These are good metrics. They have a lot of work to do. We have $20 trillion in debt. I'm very skeptical that you can grow your way out of that. But nevertheless, in 1 year, given the damage that's been done to this country for decades by the globalists, I think he's off to a really, really good start. Tonight on the Ingraham Angle, we're going to have a great show wrapping up this year and looking back on the highlights, the lowlights. You're not going to want to miss it. And a lot more to get to. 855-40-LAURA. Senator David Perdue will join us. He was there yesterday, of course. Scott Rasmussen's going to stop by. And the annual Real versus Fake Christmas tree debate coming up. Don't go away.
Out the holly, put up the tree before my spirit falls again. Fill up the stocking, I may be rushing things, but deck the halls again.
I want to thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for speaking on behalf of and fighting every day for the forgotten men and women of America. Because of your determination, because of your leadership, the forgotten men and women of America are forgotten no more, and we are making America great again. Thank you, Mr. President. God bless you.
Thanks to my wonderful sponsors and your support, I'm glad to say that we can provide this podcast at no cost to you at all. As a loyal listener of my program, please consider testing our sponsors because they're the ones who actually cover the cost to produce this daily show. So if you're a dog lover like I am, how about giving your dog, your best friend, a fresh, healthy, and nutritious diet? When dogs eat well, they live longer and happier lives. I'm here to tell you about NomNomNow.com, which cooks the world's best dog food. It's made fresh in the USA and delivered right to your door every week. Nom Nom Now's customized recipes cook fresh in our kitchen, delivering healthy nutrition you can actually see. Switch to Nom Nom Now and your dog will have more energy, a shinier, softer coat, and a longer, better life. Nom Nom Now really is the best food for your best friend. And right now you can save 50% on your first 2 orders of fresh, healthy dog food when you use my code Laura at NomNomNow.com. That's code Laura and save 50% on your first 2 orders. NomNom now.com. And code word LAURA.
You made this a Christmas to remember. Springtime feelings in the middle of December.
Steve Scalisi's braver than all of us. He's braver. Where is he? Oh boy, I don't know. He had a rougher year than most of us, but it's a hell of a way to lose weight, Steve. You said you lost it. It's not a good way. We love you, Steve. Great job. Great job.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Raymond and I are sitting there.
Mike defaming my congressman.
Oh, he wasn't. He was playing around. They're good friends. The two of them have become really good friends.
Hell of a way to lose weight.
But you know why I find the backstory on this is they had joked about Scalise had joked about it with him, and he had made that initial joke, so that was in Trump's mind. So Steve Scalise like, well, the good news is, I got to look on the bright side. I dropped 20 pounds after this. And so that's what so right. People who don't know that think that was really rude. We thought it was really funny, though. I mean, it was like something it's like something Baldwin would say on Saturday Night Live. But, well, what can you do? It was a good moment. 855-40-LAURA. We're going to talk to David Perdue coming up on the show. But, the bitter clingers. I'm going to call them the bitter clingers. The leftists. They're the bitter clingers. They're clinging to Obama, and they're bitter about Trump. So they're now the bitter clingers. To absolutely, completely bitter people. And they want to rain on our parade. James, you can just play sound bites and I'll react because this is fun this way. Go ahead.
I want to say thank you to Mr. President. Thank you, President Trump, for allowing us to have you as our president and to make America great again.
Wait. Play that again. Wait, this is Diane. Play this again.
This is really thankful.
Wait, this is thank you for being
our president.
Letting us, let's play it again.
I want to say thank you to Mr. President. Thank you, President Trump, for allowing us to have you as our president and to make America great again.
Thank you for Mr. President. Oh, no. Perhaps we need to write little notes down on a note card to facilitate our public speaking next time.
Well, they love him. It's excitement overwhelming.
Maybe
even
there was
the
a little
syntax.
something in the eggnog before they all came out.
Well, they were all on that bus. They had that bus ride.
Oh, yeah, that
Capitol.
bus. You never know what flask was hidden in the seat cushion in that bus. We saw the buses lined up as we were leaving the White House. It was fun, though. It was a great event. And I want to thank you, Raymond, for allowing me to have you here with me today.
Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane. Vixen and Blitzen and all his reindeer are pulling on the rein.
Do you have some work to do here to sell this?
I think maybe a little bit. I got to tell you, when the American people start to see more in their paychecks in February, and they're going to start to realize that that the president's vision here, that this middle-class miracle that was passed today by the Congress was an idea whose time has come, and I really do believe that it's going to sell itself.
Santa Claus. Helping the middle class has never been their goal, and this monster will come back to haunt them, as Frankenstein did.
Girls again.
If I were Nancy Pelosi, I wouldn't be throwing around the word Frankenstein anytime soon.
She's drawing in all the 19th century literary allusions. Tiny Tim, Frankenstein.
It's like taking the crutch away from Tiny Tim. It's kicking Tiny Tim off a cliff. It's like Frankenstein when I don't hit the doctor's office.
You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction, 855-40-LAURA. I'm dragging Senator David Perdue into this conversation, which is really unfortunate for him. I'm just teasing. He's an old friend of the show. Senator Perdue from the great state of Georgia. Senator, great to talk to you. We saw you there yesterday. I was sitting in the
Hi, Laura.
in the cheap seats.
We didn't get to speak. Yeah, it's a great day for America and for people who work with their hands in this country, for sure.
Let's talk about the fact, in my view, and I think you've always been kind of a conservative populist, going back when you were running for Senate the first time, and you were one of the first people to sign our FAIR pledge on immigration enforcement, and you were a real leader on that issue. And now, watching that celebration on the South Lawn yesterday, Senator, it struck me that the Republican Party, the establishment in the Republican Party, has stepped closer and closer to Donald Trump. I mean, they've moved toward him. He hasn't moved toward their more establishment views, in my understanding.
Well, Laura, you've said this all year, and I have too, that the Washington establishment does not know what to do with Donald Trump. He comes from another world, like I do. But look at the results, and I think that's what's happening, is that people are beginning to see the results, Laura. 2 million new jobs this year, 860 regulations reversed, illegal crossing the southern border down over 50%, 500 people fired at the VA, 300 people fired at Department of Education, consumer confidence, 16-year-old. Look, I can do this all day. But people in the Republican Party are now seeing that these conservative principles actually do work. And I think that's the key right now, is that we get closer and we start driving behind our agenda. This president has a plan for our country that I think will bring us back to dominance and leadership again.
When I listen to the diatribes on the left, I mean, and they're pulling out all the stops. It's going to just one big giveaway to the rich. It's people. Last night on my show, a young gentleman from the Center for American Progress started saying that, well, people are going to die. They're going to die. And he was focusing, I guess, mostly on the Obamacare repeal. But so now they've gone from it's a giveaway to the rich to people are going to die.
Well, it's tragic. The disinformation is a huge disservice to the average American. And what I hear the other side doing, that they know that their big government programs have all failed, Laura, from the Great Society's war on poverty all the way to Obamacare. I mean, look at the Postal Service, the VA, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, Amtrak. I mean, my goodness, they can't name a big sweeping government program that works. So what they're doing here is providing for the last several weeks huge disinformation. If you want to know why this bill is unpopular, according to these liberal polls, it's partly because the only feedback people are getting out there are these lies, basically. I heard Schumer say yesterday or 2 days ago that 83% of these benefits go to the top 1%. There's no way you can do the math to get that. Let me give you an example, Laura. A median income family of 4 is going to get a 60% tax cut. A median income family or a single mom at making $41,000 going to get a 75% tax cut. I mean, this is real. We took 6 million people off the rolls. So this is going to be felt starting, I believe, in February, like the Vice President just said. And I think they're going to see it in their paycheck all year.
Senator Perdue, one thing that I'm keeping my eye on in January is what I'm hearing from Jeff Flake, a man who's at 18% approval in his home state, chose not to run for re-election as a result. And he has cooked up a bipartisan deal, he's saying, on DACA. When I hear bipartisan deal on DACA coming from Jeff Flake, I don't get a thrill up my leg. I get a chill running down my spine. What do you know about this, and how do we mobilize? Because I'm telling you, this is not going to go down well with the base. If they try to ram through some amnesty with the promise of some enforcement that's hazy at best, there's going to be real trouble for this administration and for the Republicans.
I'll say this. I spoke with the president just this week on this, Laura. There is no give in this on the president's part. The president has said all along that any solution to DACA has got to include border security, including the wall, and an end to chain migration. Now, you've talked about chain migration. We all know what that is, but we know we've just had 2 terrorist attacks directly attributable to this outrageous diversity lottery, which is part of the fix that Tom Cotton and I have put forward in our RAISE Act. But I believe that this president's going to show leadership in this immigration thing in January, just the way he did on NATO and on tax.
Well, he better, because the RAISE Act should be part. I mean, nothing should happen without the RAISE Act. I think the entire RAISE Act has to be, you have to cut the legal immigration by half. We don't need all these low-skilled workers in the country. We have to end chain migration, and I mean end it. So only adult children of green card holders cannot come in, only minor children and spouses. No abuela, abuelo, primo, none. You can't, that's gotta end. The nephews, the grandnieces, they're all coming in. That has to stop. And I'm telling you, I am very concerned because Jeff Flake will never agree to the RAISE Act. Never, ever, ever. And he's going to try to sweet talk this president, a man who didn't even vote for him, who trashed him in his book. And I will just not stand for that. I trust you and Cotton on this. I do not trust these other people. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Well, I trust the president on this because I know his heart. He knows what the right thing to do to protect America is, and that's to put the end to chain migration and in this diversity lottery. So you'll hear a lot of rhetoric in the media by those who are going to try to solve DACA alone and do it independently. And that's a little bit about what this rhetoric was about this week. We got tax done. Let's celebrate that. Going into January, we're going to do everything we can to end this chain migration because it really is an insidious thing. You know, over 70% of Americans believe that any immigrant family coming in should be limited to the worker and the immediate family of minor children and the wife or the spouse. So, I mean, 70%. Find another issue where 70% of America, Laura, agrees.
Well, but when chain migration is a must, but what about the rest of the RAISE Act? What about all the other things that are in it?
We're holding out to go all the way to RAISE because what we're doing right now, we're losing competitiveness with the rest of the world. Look, if you get this economy going, one of the things you have to do is you have to be a brain sink from the rest of the world to get the best and brightest of the world to come to America like they always did up until the 90s. And so this is what the RAISE Act will do. Canada and Australia have proven that works. And listen, they're no bastion of conservatism. It's just that they recognize from an economic point of view that you've got to go attract the best and brightest. And that's what the RAISE Act would do by having a merit-based immigration system.
So you got a pledge from the president that he would not go for any clean DACA fix.
Well, he said that publicly over and over.
Yeah.
I mean, this president doesn't give pledges, but what he said is any fix to DACA has got to include an end to chain migration and the wall. And I just talked to him this week about it, and he is adamant about that.
No, I hope so, because I don't know. When I hear Jeff Flake working with the Democrats, that does not give me a good feeling. And I mean, other than you, I guess keep going. Other than you and Cotton and a few members of Congress, there's just every time they try to do this immigration stuff, it backfires on the Republicans. I mean, and I'm worried. It's 800,000 new Democrat voters, by the way, and you do the math on that. How does that work out for the Republican Party in the future? That's what I'm concerned about as well.
Laura, thank you. You've been such a stalwart on this. But, you know, I think you're going to hear the common conversation that has failed 3 times in the last 11 years on this immigration fix. They broaden it to be comprehensive. They want an immediate fix for the DACA kids without any other gifts. So, you know, there are a few people in the Republican Party that try to solve the Democrats' negotiating position for them, and that's just not the way this president operates, not the way I operate.
How many votes do you need, though, Senator? How many votes? I mean, this is going to be not a budget process. This is going to be a regular piece of legislation, meaning the Democrats can try to filibuster, correct? The cloture, the number, the 60-vote thing? How do you work that?
You're going to have to have 60 votes, so you're going to have to meet some of the needs of the other side. Now, look, that doesn't mean you just solve their problem alone. You've got to look, the major issue here is the security of America and the economic future. And if you don't end chain migration, there's no way you're going to, with a wall or without the wall, you're not going to ensure the security of America. And that's what this president keeps saying over and over again.
I'm with the Democrats agreeing to this. I don't know. I don't mean to stick on this issue because there's so many great things that have happened, but I'm concerned. When Jeff Flake should not have any part of this process. He has no constituency, and he's on the edge of the Republican Party, almost a Democrat. I don't understand why Jeff Flake has any credibility on this issue whatsoever. And I think the president follows him right off a cliff. I mean, that goes right off a cliff. He sticks with Jeff Flake. That man is completely out to lunch. I'm sorry. I know it's one of your colleagues, but no can do Jeff Flake. All right, Senator Perdue, give us a Georgia tradition. What are you going to do on Christmas? And we asked Mike Pence this yesterday, and he said we're going to gather around the tree, which is fine. But I need more than that. I want a Georgia tradition that either from your childhood that you remember or something that you do with your family that's just special for Christmas.
Well, I grew up working on my family farms, and my grandparents always had the entire family there, which were close, and we'd have 50, 60 people. We just did this at Thanksgiving. So, great pecan pie. I just remember that from my childhood, and we've got cousins now that do that. So we'll have a big family tradition, and we cherish our grandchildren and the new addition. So it's a blessed time in our country right now. I believe we have a president that's breaking eggs here in Washington and is going to get us back to these founding principles, Laura. There are going to be some fights in here, but I think we've got a guy that is providing leadership right now, getting us reengaged in the world and getting this economy going again. It's a blessing.
Senator David Perdue, it's always so much fun to have you on. Have a Merry Christmas with you have one grandchild or more than one?
We have three personally, but in our extended family, we've got a bucket load, so it'll be a lot of fun. Merry
That's
Christmas.
The best. And it makes you smile. Grandkids are the best. I can tell you my brother likes his grandkids better than he likes his kids. No, I mean, practically. I mean, it's just enjoyable when you can. It's fun for a while, and then you can go back and relax. It's just good for you. And Sarah Sanders says she's going to send over a pecan pie to you, so you'll be all
great.
Set.
I'll be looking for it. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Senator. You take care. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Hollywood grousing, but are you going to the theater much this year? Don't go away.
Caroling through the snow, Christmas bells are ringing.
Back on the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Nancy Pelosi was taking her criticism of the bill to a Dickensian extreme yesterday, along with Jackie Spire. Were they reading from the same...
Maybe, the Republicans have a Bible reading group. Maybe the Democrats have a literary group that meets every week.
Right, a 19th century.
That's right.
19th century tomes. We go back to...
they just finished,
Great Expectations.
And now they're moving their way to Christmas Carol,
Right, exactly.
apparently.
Let's listen.
Yesterday, we heard the story, and I wish our Republican friends could have heard it, of Laura Hatcher, mother of sweet and kind 11-year-old Simon. Simon has a rare disease and cerebral palsy. His mother spoke of how their family watches the Muppet version of A Christmas Carol and how Simon sees himself in Tiny Tim. And like Tiny Tim, Simon and his family now find their future in danger because of the greed of those with power, the cruelty that is in the heart of the tax scam.
And Merry Christmas. And a Merry Christmas to you.
I have never heard people so negative and miserable during Christmas.
Spire, do you have the Jackie Spire? We played that last night on the Ingraham Angle. Jackie Spire said she basically copied what
she said
Nancy
the same
Pelosi
thing, yeah.
said. Oh no, it was even better actually. It was did they find Marcellus from the Obamacare passage? That little boy well, we're going to get into that. By the way, they used Tim Scott apparently, the senator from South Carolina. He's an African American senator from South Carolina, and they used him. They just used him as a prop yesterday, according to one Democrat writer, one
Andy
left-wing writer.
Ostroy at the Huffington Post said, "What a shocker! There's one black person there, and sure enough, he's standing right next to the mic like a manipulated prop. Way to go, Senator Tim Scott."
I'm sure Marcellus, who they used as the new
that little African American boy they dragged out when Obama signed the health
he was like
care.
the Mason Reese of the of the healthcare debate, and they.
Gary Coleman. He was like the Gary Coleman of the healthcare debate. Another lovable child actor.
That Marcellus of Obamacare fame, who was there when President Obama signed it? Do you know he's now transgendered? Transgender? Yeah, there was a story about him. How he's
so we may be seeing him again for another.
Yeah, he might be in another campaign.
He could be in a
military.
Recruiting poster for the.
Did you see that? Mattis has announced there is a new initiative for recruitment
of transgendered people.
Be all that you can be, or something else.
Your Healthy Radio Addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
He's making a list and checking it twice. Gonna find out who's naughty and nice. Santa Claus is coming to town.
The Arab League says this move has, quote, isolated the U.S. from the peace process. Your administration, of course, has made peace in the Middle East one of its top priorities. How does this move help that? How does it help the peace process in any way?
Well, let's first of all talk about what this does. This basically says that the United States acknowledges that the capital of Israel is Jerusalem, and saying also that the embassy is going to be moved to the capital, just like it is in almost every other country. In Israel, in Jerusalem, you've got the parliament, you've got the president, you've got the prime minister, you've got the Supreme Court. So why shouldn't we have the embassy there?
You are listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Nikki Haley was there. She was on CNN, but what we really want to hear is Nikki Haley at the United Nations, where she just threw down. She threw down against the Arab nations that are revolting against what the Trump administration decided, and which every president had agreed to and just not done, namely moving our embassy to what we believe is the capital of Israel.
And the UN is meeting right now, an emergency session over this Jerusalem decision, and the president boldly, defiantly, at his cabinet meeting, said, I'm making a list, and I'm going to check it twice. And if those countries vote against me, look out. Do we have that sound?
Oh,
and boy,
God.
he was unbelievable. He said, I have it here.
Unbelievable.
All of these nations that take our money and then they vote against us in the Security Council, or they'll vote against us potentially at the Assembly. They take hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars, and then they vote against us. Well, we're watching those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care. That's what he said.
I mean, he said this in the cabinet meeting yesterday. It was played on every cable network. Every cable network played this, and I think people were cheering.
He's really throwing down here and saying, you know what? We pay 22% of the cost of the UN. The least these allies could do is support us on something like this. The other thing is, it's not as if he's making a solemn declaration. He said, all we're doing is moving the embassy. That doesn't mean that he's solving the contentious debate between the Palestinians and the Israelis over their capital. He says he's still open to that. We'll see.
And I think that it's probably time that we make these nations, let these nations fend for themselves. I mean, honestly, the idea that we're supporting all these other countries with billions and billions of dollars, with the exception of a few who are real allies like Israel, we're spending billions and billions of dollars. And we get a lot of grief far too often from these same nations. And Donald Trump laid down the marker in Europe with NATO, and he's laid down the marker again. It is our decision where to move our capital. So they had to be the veto. It's the first veto that they exercised at the Security Council since Trump has been president, and they vetoed because everybody's against them. But today is the General Assembly vote on this. Let's listen.
For all of these nations that take our money and then they vote against us at the Security Council, or they vote against us potentially at the Assembly. They take hundreds of millions of dollars and even billions of dollars, and then they vote against us. Well, we're watching those votes. Let them vote against us. We'll save a lot. We don't care. But this isn't like it used to be, where they could vote against you and then you pay them hundreds of millions of dollars and nobody knows what they're doing. So, Nikki, that was the right message that you and I agreed to be sent yesterday.
At the UN.
I've had a lot of good comment on it, believe me.
Mm-hmm.
At the United Nations, Nikki Haley delivered a blistering response to the critics. This is our decision. And again, this has been the message of this administration. We are a sovereign nation. We make our own calls. We do what's best for our country, just as you do what's best for yours. And I understand that sometimes you're not going to agree with us. But we have a sovereign right to make these decisions. Now, Mike Pence is going to the region in the middle of January. And as of last week, he had the Palestinians cancel their meetings with him. The Egyptian Copts, the Christians, cancel the meeting with him. The Egyptian leader, al-Sisi, canceled the meeting with him, all in protest of the U.S. decision to move their embassy to Jerusalem. And I find it refreshing that whether we're talking about China and how they've cheated us to the core for 25 years, or Vietnam, or Mexico, or Venezuela, or any of these other countries, that our message to them is, we'll work with you on what we can work with you on, but guess what? We're pursuing our interest. But this has been China's approach all along. They do what's best for China. And then we sit there going, how can we be a better global partner? And Trump comes along and says, not only you're not our partner, you're our adversary. You're our strategic adversary. You're not our partner. You're seeking to dominate economically, and we are focusing on renewing our economy and our patriotism, our patriotic spirit. How many of you believe that Trump's popularity is going to go up next year when people see the full effect of this tax bill? 855-40-LAURA. Do you believe Trump becomes more popular next year in the midterm election cycle? There was a piece in the LA Times today, which I found, I think we might do it tonight on the Ingraham angle, but protesters stash bullhorns and hot chocolate just in case Trump fires Mueller. Organizers have stashed bullhorns in apartments and offices near Manhattan's Times Square. They've stockpiled hot chocolate mix and sleeping bags in Salt Lake City, and they've started arranging carpools in Houston. Across the country, activists are making plans, collecting supplies, and raising money to swiftly launch hundreds of street protests if President Trump fires Bob Mueller, the special counsel. The last thing we want to be caught is unprepared, said Elizabeth Beavers, a Washington-based policy manager for Indivisible, one of several liberal groups involved in the protest plans. We're on red alert, agreed Zach Patankis, a Democratic consultant working with the organizers. Trump's opponents don't buy his denials that he's not going to fire Mueller, especially as some Republican lawmakers and conservative commentators have escalated demands for Mueller to get the boot. I went into shock after the presidential election, and I became politically active almost immediately, said Mary Louise Ochoa, a retired University of Houston staff member who was helping organize in her city. There's been no respite since then. Winning. The protest began on January 21st, the day after Trump was sworn into office, when hundreds of thousands of women gathered in Washington and other cities in a kind of counter-inauguration. After Trump tried to ban immigrants and refugees from 7 majority Muslim countries, the protesters flocked to LAX and other airports. Oh, God, I'm glad that's behind us, I have to say. Yeah. That was a bungled rollout of that travel ban. That got him off on the wrong start. But anyway, so this is what these people are. This is what they do. They stockpile hot cocoa mix and bullhorns. You see, you know what conservatives do?
Work.
Take care of their families and work. We go to work, sometimes 2 and 3 jobs. We go to work. But they I don't know if they don't have regular work or they're independently wealthy. I don't know what they do, but this is their work, the resistance. This is their job, the resistance. Do you think any of these people would have the guts to come on with me tonight? Zach Patankis. He's working with the organizers. I want someone on set with me. That way, if their spittle flies across the glass table, it gets really dramatic versus being on the double boxes. The double boxes are never quite as dramatic as, when someone's pounding the table. It's much better when you have that take the shoe off and pound the table moment on the show. You're listening to your healthy radio addiction. How many of you think that Donald Trump and his agenda will become more popular in 2018 as a result of the tax reform kicking in, especially people getting more money in their pockets. Do you think the entire cast and crew of MSNBC is going to give up that $1,000 they got from Comcast? They got the check. They're getting it today, I guess, cut into their paychecks, $1,000. Think they're going to give that money up? That'd probably pay for at least 2 dinners that Morning Mika has. Do you think they're going to try to crash the Trump Mar-a-Lago New Year's Eve party? Think they'll try to crash that again?
They showed up at the New Year's Eve party and her face was bleeding from a facelift.
Oh my God! Do you remember when he tweeted? That was last year, wasn't it?
That was last year. Yep.
And then they denied it. Well, which part did they deny? Did they deny that
the facelift or the crashing? I can't remember.
I can't remember what they denied, but the whole thing was she showed up and her face was no. This is typical Trump.
Her face was bleeding badly from a facelift.
Oh my goodness. You know what I haven't heard lately on the radio is the dog barking Christmas song,
no.
Jingle Bells.
I can't stand that.
When
that
I was
and
a
the cats.
kid, meow, 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 meow,
No.
When I was little, when that would come on WDRC on our little AM transistor radio that my mother had in her kitchen, right? She'd sit on this stool at our tiny little counter having her toast and coffee, and she would listen to it was Bob Grant, who was he just recently died, Bob Grant.
Big deal in New York.
Excuse me, that Bob Grant, we listened to Bob Steele. Sorry, Bob Steele. Bob Grant was the other one we listened to. Bob Steele in the morning. And it would be, when that would come on, I would say, Mommy, how do they make the dogs sing like that? I was so fascinated by that. How did they do that? Is that someone doing
Auto-tune. It's auto-tune.
Oh. That sounds like Junkyard.
Have you heard the Donald Trump singing?
No.
All I Want for Christmas? James, find Donald Trump singing All I Want for Christmas. Somebody cut up his speeches, and then with auto-tune, they have raised the different notes.
They do that. That's
so that,
a lot of work.
If you don't know how they do it, just talk to Mariah Carey. When you're flat, they bring it up to make it, hit the right note. And it is little excerpts of Trump in speeches, and they've strung it together so that it appears that he's singing All I Want for Christmas is You. It's like,
want a lot for Christmas. There is just one thing I need. Don't care about the presents underneath the Christmas tree. I don't need to hang my stocking.
It is him. The video is really funny.
The video is funny. Put that on our Facebook page, please. Get that put up on our Facebook page, James. Please tell the elves in the studio to do that. I want it on Facebook. That's hilarious. By the way, there's a great family movie that we watched last weekend called Christmas in the Heartland that friends of mine in Texas did. It's really fun. It's a great movie for families that you can watch together. I think they just released it, and it was in like a soft release, but it's on Netflix. I think it's on Amazon and a lot of other platforms. But it's a fun movie. So it's called Christmas in the Heartland. I posted it I guess, on my personal Facebook page. But James, make sure that's posted. The link on Amazon for people to watch it. Make sure it's posted on our show Facebook page as well. And for all of you listening, remember, we're looking for 3 of you, heavy hitters, to give $10,000 each to Food for the Poor. Okay, this is our last show before Christmas. Food for the Poor, $10,000 each. You get to come to the studio, you hang out with us, and last hour of the show, you get to host with me. We're going to have a lot of fun. So I want you to pony up. You got some big, big money out there listening to the show. 10,000. You got to get your tax deductions at the end of the year. So I've already shoveled my money out the door for all the worthy charities. But Food for the Poor is just phenomenal. Great, great people. Money spent to save the lives of 200 children. We're trying for this last month. We're going to try to save 200 children. Food for the Poor. Go to lauraingraham.com. Click on that banner, or you can call us now at 855-40-LAURA, and we'll arrange. It'll be a lot of fun. Again, Food for the Poor are great partners in helping those most in need this Christmas season. We'll take a break on the Laura Ingraham Show. 855-40-LAURA. Scott Rasmussen will join us. He's the editor-at-large of Ballotpedia. Will the president be able to turn his numbers around in the new year, boosting the Republicans' prospects in the midterm election cycle. Democrats get a hold of that Congress, and boy, all bets are off as to what will happen next to this president and his agenda. Stay with us.
He don't love you like I love you. If he did, he would break your heart.
Something this profound could not have been done without exquisite presidential leadership.
We're going to make this the greatest presidency that we've seen, not only in generations, but maybe ever.
You're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. Who loves Trump more now? Is it Orrin Hatch or Paul Ryan? Well, they like winning. And if someone helps you win, you just happen to like them more. That's just the way it goes. I mean, winning is better than losing. Being popular is better than being unpopular. If you're doing the right thing, that is. 855-40-LAURA. Let's go to Eric in Nevada. Will Trump become more popular next year as tax reform kicks in? Eric.
Without question, I think he'll go up. It's a difference between Democrats preying on people's negative feelings and the feeling a child gets when you buy them exactly what they want for Christmas, as opposed to some cheap substitute that you can afford. Now we can afford things, the feelings are going to go up, and he's going to be very popular as a result.
You need happy voters in 2018. I've been saying this for weeks and weeks and weeks. Happy, happy, happy. We want people to happy. Life goes by really fast. I mean, when you look back at this last year, doesn't it all seem like a complete blur? I was looking at photos from last Christmas a couple nights ago. And like, where did this year go? It's just, so time will go by very fast. That's why he has a great sense of urgency. Trump calls people, where's the legislation? Why can't we get this fixed? Add something else. If he doesn't like it, let's try to get the vote over there. Like he has the cards on the table and he's trying to figure out a way to win the hand. And he is very impatient. Like, I'm very impatient. I want what I want, and I want it now. Okay, I don't like equivocators. I've never liked equivocators. I like people who are straight shooters. When they're going to do something, they do it. Trump is the same way. He wants progress now. Now, you can't always get what you want, as his theme song goes from the Rolling Stones. You can't always get what you want. You get what you need. This is what they needed.
Which I've never much liked. I never really understood. Why is he saying that? That's a mixed message.
Why was that the theme song?
They still play it. He was at the rally in Pensacola a week ago.
Well, was that the message to the Republican Party? You can't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Right.
He's
Maybe
what
that's
you need.
it. Maybe
and
that's
look, he wanted 15% corporate tax rate. He wanted a much simpler tax reform. But this is what they needed now. They needed a win. Yep. But I'm telling you, everyone I spoke to at the White House yesterday said, man, this guy drove it through. And they did work together. For all of the articles that have been written about the divided Republican Party, Trump has done more to bring this Republican Party together than George Bush has done since right after 9/11. He has united the Republican Party in a way that we haven't seen it united since the immediate aftermath of 9/11, in my view. You're listening to your Healthy Radio Addiction. Scott Rasmussen's going to join us. Your reaction, if you could grade Trump's presidency in the first year, what grade would you give him and why? Coming up.
Hi, this is Ben Domenech, the host of the Federalist Radio Hour. We're a daily show coming to you 5 days a week from Washington, D.C., where we interview our nation's top journalists, politicians, authors, chefs, economists, entertainers, and more. If you're looking for a contrarian discussion on news, politics, or culture, give us a listen and subscribe at podcastone.com, the new Podcast One app, or at Apple Podcasts.
Last Christmas, I gave you my heart, but the very next day, you gave it away.
Getting those numbers up, I know you don't believe in the polls, but you don't think that's important in the midterms with these critical Senate races, given you got a lot of people who want President Trump to resign. You got a building movement to investigate him on sexual harassment allegations in the Senate and the House. Don't you guys need that House and Senate majority?
Yeah, well, let me be clear. I'm skeptical about what the poll numbers are. But I think you can count on the fact this president, myself, our entire team, we're going to be canvassing across the country in the next year. We're going to be telling the story of the progress this country is making.
The word is that they might do an unconventional signing of the tax reform legislation. So not just sign it in the Oval Office, but maybe somewhere else.
Ooh.
Maybe.
Well, it'd be good to get it, take the show on the road.
Why not?
Well, this is what you talked about in your angle the other night.
Mm-hmm.
Putting a human face on what is a very dry business, tax numbers and tax rates. People don't always understand the real-world implications of that. Maybe that's a good thing if they showed people, the people who are really being affected.
855-40-LAURA. We're going to get into all of this. Joining us now, Scott Rasmussen, who's editor-at-large of Ballotpedia and founder of Rasmussen Reports, and we're delighted he is with us. Scott, how are you? Merry Christmas. It's been a long time. Haven't chatted with you for some time.
It has been a while, but it's always great to be with you, and hope that your holiday season is going well so far.
Well, it is. It's we're all very blessed to be living in this country, and even at a time with political divisions, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. I mean, it's just I look around us, and we have our health, and we have a chance at real prosperity here in this country, and a chance of new economic growth, and I think the sky could be the limit for this country. But the numbers on where the president's both approval is and where the approval for the tax reform is seem on the surface to be quite discouraging, in the 30s or low 40s. What's your take on whether that actually means much? Mike Pence last night said to me in an exclusive interview I did, he said, we're not focused on the polls. It's nice when they're up, but we're just going to keep putting wins on the board. What do you think about that approach?
Well, obviously, politicians always say they don't put much faith in the polls when the numbers aren't good for them. But I do think there are some things that are perhaps misunderstood about some of the polling that we're seeing. It's true. The president's job approval ratings are in the 35 or 40% range, and normally that would be disastrous for a party heading into a midterm election. I don't think it's great for the Republicans. But there's another group of voters that I think is the most interesting segment of the electorate. I would call them reluctant Trump supporters, and these are people who disapprove of the president, but are still happy he's in office rather than Hillary Clinton. In the election, we talked about people who didn't like either candidate. Well, that group is still there, and so they're happy to see tax reform passed. They're happy that Neil Gorsuch is on the Supreme Court, but they're unhappy with a lot of other things that Donald Trump is doing, and that's going to be the group that determines whether this is a disastrous election for the Republican Party, or if the president can convince people that the tax reform and his efforts to reduce regulation have set the stage for great economic growth. They could make it a reasonably good election for the GOP.
Scott, we're going to try to reconnect with you because for some reason you're coming through less than clear, and I want to make sure we hear everything you say. That's an interesting thought, is it not, that approval numbers are a snapshot in time, and I think they take into account things that are unrelated in a way to results. When it comes to Trump, because he's such a different cat, he is unconventional, and that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. It really does. Whether you're Republican or Democrat, how many times do you have people saying, I wish he wouldn't tweet so much? And I said the other night, the Twitter battles can get a little tedious at times. But using Twitter to push your agenda, I think, is a great idea. Talking about what the tax reform really is, tweeting out clips of families and factory workers whose lives are going to be improved by this tax reform. On foreign policy, the same thing. If it's directed conversation, communication to the American people, well directed to advance the agenda, I think it's fantastic.
Well, people want to see the real world impact. How does trade and the trade deficit going down with China, how does that benefit manufacturers in the United States and the workers in those factories? That is a great untold story, and we have no faces to put with that. Coal is a major good story for the Trump administration. Why aren't they sending teams? Why isn't the president going out to West Virginia to celebrate with the coal miners? This is working.
Well, we're going to, in just a few moments, James, I know you have the soundbite, I'm sure, of Lisa Murkowski, We're going to play this for Scott. Scott Rasmussen's back with us, and hopefully, I would hope the audio is better at this point. Scott, Lisa Murkowski, who has not been a fan of this president, Paul Ryan, who at one point said he was basically said he was a racist, and others yesterday at that White House celebration, it was a sight to behold. And in 1 year, the Republican Party has moved closer to Trump. Then it's moved back to the establishment corner. He has unified this party, and he has brought it together at the end of the year after a tumultuous time, undoubtedly. But I see this GOP as much more Trumpian today than of the old Bush establishment Chamber of Commerce era.
Absolutely. In fact, you're going to see more of it as 2018 progresses, and when Congress convenes in 2019. No matter what happens in the midterms, the Republican Party in Congress will be closer to Donald Trump and the base than it is to the Republican establishment. And look, the reason for that is pretty simple. It's been a long, long time that there has been this gap between the base and the establishment, the elites in Washington. And the Republican establishment has no natural constituency around the country. So there are leaders without followers, and they need to find a way to connect with that. And Donald Trump has found a way to connect with large segments of the population.
We had a message to the president a couple of days ago that he should, and I did this on the Ingraham angle, that he should now take this agenda and the accomplishment of tax reform on the road, and at least a couple of times a week, hit areas of the country that have suffered under globalization and, frankly, poor leadership from both the Republicans and the Democrats at times, whether it's crime or failing schools or shuttered factories, and say, look, I know you guys don't like everything about me or my presidency, but I just want you to know that I'm listening to you. I hear what your concerns are. We want your towns and cities to be prosperous and safer, and we're working to do that. And I want you to know that I'm the president of all the people, even those who didn't vote for me. And I'm here to tell you that. A lot of other Republicans haven't done that, and I think it was a huge and lost opportunity for the inner city, for Oakland, California, all the way down to Miami, Florida. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a great thought for the president to get out and deliver that message, and I would suggest there are two types of places he should go. One, there are 206 counties across America that we call pivot counties. They voted for Barack Obama twice, and then they voted for Donald Trump. Only 5% of the votes in America during 2016 were cast in these counties, but they accounted for 51% of all the Republican popular vote gains. These are people who feel they have been left behind by both political parties and who Donald Trump did touch the first time around. He should go back and make sure that they understand he is still listening. And then I agree with you in terms of going into some areas that Republicans never go to, some urban areas that are thought to be impossible for the GOP, and take the case, make the arguments that good things are happening because of the agenda that this administration is following. I think the repeal of Obamacare, the mandate, I think the other deregulatory actions and this tax cut give the president a good message to sell. And bluntly, there's nobody else in the party that will be able to sell it.
Well, I think, again, it's hard, and they are probably worried, the advance team. Scott, we're talking to Scott Rasmussen here on the Laura Ingraham Show, because of the protests. And the resistance is trying to make it impossible for this president to travel. They did that to him in to some extent during the last 2 or 3 months of the campaign. And they tried to keep him locked down so he couldn't go anywhere. And he went to California, and there were all those protests, and they got pretty violent. He had to cross over the barricade to.
Well,
so they're trying to keep him locked down. What should he do about that?
He should still go and speak. He's president of all the people. He should try to make that case. And every time there is an effort that goes over the top to prevent the president from speaking somewhere, that's the kind of imagery that would be good for President Trump. It will make Democratic activists feel good that they created a protest. But in terms of those Americans who are in the middle, who, again, don't like President Trump but are still happy that Hillary's not in the White House, they will not appreciate that kind of protest and attempt to shut down the president. And as you know, whether it's Twitter or through any other means, President Trump will get his message out. So I think it's important for him to take this on the road.
Well, and again, Reagan, we go back, and obviously we're a different country demographically than we were in 1984, but Reagan won 49 states in 1984. 49. It went all across the country. And I think, Scott, it's very difficult for Republicans to start every presidential election cycle writing off California and New York right off the bat. Every single election cycle. I mean, it's like you got to win those states back. You got to have a path back to electoral glory in those states somehow. You got to start making inroads.
Yeah, well, you know, during the 2016 election, I went on Fox News every week and was asked the same question: what is Donald Trump's path to victory? And the answer was always, it's very narrow. It was easy to show him getting to about 263 electoral college votes. You know, you win the McCain-Romney states, you had Iowa, Ohio, Florida, and all of a sudden you're there. And then you had to pick up a surprise, which the president did in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. But when you start with only 263 votes that are even really in your sweet spot, that's a tough path. And the Republicans do need to find a message that will broaden that electoral base. I'm not sure that California is attainable anytime soon, but it's important to put the effort in now if you want to have a chance to be competitive in California in the future. And this is something that, you know, again, Republicans are uncomfortable with, and a lot of times they don't want to go to some of these areas, but they have to.
Yeah, and I think, look, Hispanic voters, if their lives start getting better, and they look back and say, wait a second, I wasn't doing so well 5 years ago, but hey, I've gotten $1,000 more every 2 months in my paycheck, and my wages have gone up a little bit, and I can actually save a little bit. I think people's minds are turned, and it's not going to happen overnight. But if it's like anything, if you don't put in the work, you never improve.
Right. So
hey,
here's,
Scott,
I think.
Go ahead, close it out for us.
I was going to say the president needs to make his case, but ultimately the thing that matters is, do people see improvement in their life? So if the president comes and gives a speech, people might write it off. But if he comes and gives a speech and makes a point, and then their life gets a little bit better, that's ultimately the way change comes about.
Scott Rasmussen, now I realize why I've missed you so much. You're so smart, and you've been so successful in every endeavor, but we love Ballotopedia and, of course, Rasmussen Reports. And I always forget, you were the co-founder of ESPN? Is that right?
Yeah, a long time ago. I had hair on my head back then.
Oh, my gosh. How did I even forget that? And those were the glory days for ESPN. Now those are the good old days. That's like anything. Everything changes. But Scott, just have a wonderful holiday. I hope we get to chat with you soon, and please please keep doing what you're doing. We love your analysis.
I look forward to talking again soon. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
All right, take care. Scott Rasmussen here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Coming up, the most I'd say the soundbite of the year contest, the fake versus real Christmas tree debate, and a lot more through Raymond Sneezes. Don't go away. All right, you're listening to the Laura Ingraham Show, 855-40-LAURA. You can give us your recommendations for the soundbite of the year, the moment of the year in sound that you think captures the whole spirit of the thing. So we'll get to that next hour. And remember, Ingram Angle tonight, 10 p.m. Eastern, Fox News.
Thanks for listening to the Laura Ingraham Show podcast. Download new episodes every week at podcastone.com. That's podcastone.com.
Podcast One has new shows on our new app. Check out all the cool features to help you explore our exciting new programming, like America's Lakers podcast with Jay Moore, Sessions with Randy Jackson, So Random with Corinne Olympios, Attack Each Day, The Harbaugh's podcast, Not Just Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen, and Sound of Success, the Dick Enberg podcast, as well as your old favorites like The Lady Gang, Steve Austin, Shaquille O'Neal, and Adam Carolla. Get the new Podcast One app in the App Store, Google Play, or PodcastOne.com.